Good morning. Good morning, guys. um, Marvell stock falls on Microsoft. Amazon fears. What the hell happened to Microsoft? My current positions are along in AMD, along in NEM. So I bought AMD very similar to how I bought NVIDIA the prior day. I bought it just taking out this prior day high. And I obviously, kind of got stuffed right away, but just taking out the prior day high. And then, obviously got stuffed a little bit by the 20, but the level that I'm going to consider adding will be that 226 level right over these highs right here. You'll notice in after hours, it's got some right here and then right here. Those are two levels I'm definitely watching. But yeah, I still have AMD. I bought some NEM yesterday, just over prior day high as well. I still am short Netflix. And I'm basically short from 110. And I started my short on this day. I added a little bit the next. I added a little bit on this day here. I have an NVIDIA long, and I'm effectively flat on it as well. I guess the real question with NVIDIA is, are we building higher lows and trying to get through the 50? We'll find out today. I still have a short in QUBT. I'm up, about 12 cents a share. So not really doing a bunch of anything. I bought Rubric on the gap up day, and this one's acting pretty dang good so far. I bought Rubric going back through VWAP. I'm long Tesla. I bought it when it was going through the 50, and I added on this pullback to the 50, and so far it's pretty decent. And I've got XOM, and I bought this one off of the 50 on the 28th. I don't really trade the weekly chart. I look at it, of course, but I don't really trade it. So, yeah, that's about that, right? I don't really trade it. Oh, man, the GEV breakout was so nice, too. And I was early to this thing. I tried buying, like, these UNRs at, like, 600, going back through 600 and here, and I just got chopped up, I want to say, in here. I was just a little early. But, what are we going to do? Such an awesome move. Yeah, Lily is definitely one that I'm keeping an eye on. You get this big ramp up in volume, and then you get this nice little fall in volume, even on the pullback. So I'll be keeping a close eye on this one for, some kind of a 5-minute. It's got this 990 level. It was a gap that had already closed, but I'll be keeping an eye on that 990 level still going forward. And we'll see if we can get just a good little 5-minute opening range break. The other idea is just a little sideways, build a higher low, and then I can buy that higher low. Yeah, Frog was a nice one. Lemonade's another really nice one. Frog I thought was good at the $60 HVC. Obviously, if you took it yesterday, fine. But really, the best entry was on the 2nd of December on the HVC effectively as a higher low setup. So you could have bought it at 60. You could have bought it at 61 with risk off of 60. It ended up working great. Lemonade, not as nice of a group, but definitely one that is on radar. We are back above the HVC as well. So going to keep that one on watch. MU, would I consider a double top short sale? It could be. Here's the thing about when I get asked something like that. if I play it as a double top short sale, I always make sure that I keep tight rein on it regardless, right? Like we don't ever know if something's going to be a double top short sale until it's hindsight, until it actually worked, right? I don't know that something's going to be a good undercut and rally um, until it's hindsight, until it goes on to work. So I don't ever really. Now I might look at MU and say to myself, this base needs more consolidation. And therefore, I see the market coming down. I see STX acting poorly. I see WDC rolling over. I see SNDK not acting well. I see some semiconductors not performing well. Let me short this as a double top short sale because the evidence in the market is pointing to lower, right? So the first thing I like to tell myself is what is the evidence in the market pointing to with this particular stock? What's my tactical entry to get short or long something? And then do I still have to manage risk, right? So that's kind of how I take it, right? It's an overview of the market. How's the overview of this particular group? What's my tactical setup on the daily? What's my tactical entry on a smaller time frame to get myself positioned? And then whether or not it actually works out to be a DTSS is known after the fact, right? So that's kind of how I view it. Does it end up being a DTSS? I mean, okay, fine, but where? Are we thinking about using the 10th high, which is 257.07, or are we really using D high on the 17th, 260.58? You know, we'll see what happens when it gets up to those levels. TXG. Yeah. TXG. 50 million bucks a day moves almost 6%. You know, good, but not great yet, I guess. I mean, not bad. Yeah, I mean, GFI is tight. The one thing I'll say is gold's got to get moving because it is lagging silver. And I got NEM and I don't really beautiful day yesterday, but I would prefer to be in PAAS. Much better. And really, I'd prefer to be in PAAS from either down here, low cheat setup, or the 50 SMA reclaim. So are there any other similar setups to buy HVC from a base? Well, it could be that lemonade ends up being one of those. How do you know when to buy over a prior day high versus a pullback to a key moving average? You know, kind of like I just explained earlier, they're both just entry tactics. Which one goes on to work often is really dependent on what group the stock is in and how the market is performing at the time you go to do it. So, yeah, I will say that, you know, part of my problem with, you know, KLAC is it is straight off the bottom. And similarly, LRCX, again, just straight off the bottom into supply. Could it absolutely go to work? Yes. Could they go on to work from here? I 100% normally tell people to buy stocks that are leading their group. But sometimes, you know, when you're buying something that's going through a key moving average like Tesla, I'm allowing myself very, very tight risk using that moving average as my guide. When I look at something like KLAC or LRCX, I still like the way semiconductors are performing, but I can't get long this thing here, right? It's what do I use as my guide for risk? And so that's very important. Although I agree with you completely, I think that there are semis which are acting better. I just necessarily can't get in it. So it's like, what do? Do I just own nothing? Right? I mean, I guess that's a possibility too. Just like don't own AMD at all and don't buy any of the not properly set up semiconductors because they're just going straight up and they're not building out the right hand side of their base. Or do I buy the stock that's super tight like AMD and trying to potentially reclaim key moving averages? Again, it's like to each their own. I still think the market's healthy. So, you know, do I buy the one that's reclaiming key moving averages? that has been a name that has been in. And by the way, it's not like when we say best performers, right? AMD is up a ton from the April lows, 200%, right? And then you've got a KLAC from April lows. This thing is up 116%. So is it really a better performer than AMD? Just throwing that out there. You know, like, is it? Is LRCX really a better performer? I mean, this one, it's right on par with an AMD. So, you know, an AMD is a great performer, but it made such a huge move, 230, 240% from its April lows to to October highs, that it earned itself a breather. Does that make sense? So, like, I look at KLAC, I mean, even AVGO, right? I'm going to give this one credit. This one's absolutely a leader. It's up 190%, right? And it's up near those highs. But how do I get involved in this thing right now? I unfortunately can't, right? I either bought it on the 20 SMA reclaim, or I don't really have another spot for this choppy one. So it's just kind of my thinking. Cypher review. Cypher, okay. I personally think Wolf is acting a whole heck of a lot better. We'll see. I think there's a lot of eyeballs on that sucker. I feel like there's a lot of people watching these Cypher and Iron. I kind of made a mistake covering the last of my Iron yesterday, but you sold GEV for 12 points. Shouldn't have day traded it. Does GEV after hours move disprove efficient market theory? I don't know what the hell what that would even mean. Why would that disprove efficient market theory at all? Reddit, awesome strength in Reddit. I don't have a setup there, unfortunately. I like the way it looks. I just don't have a setup. Goldfield looks good. Where's my HVC volume on Frog? From earnings. See this volume bar? See the close? See the close at 60? After it built higher lows, there you go, on the higher low. Could have bought the higher low itself above prior day high, or you could have bought it at 60. Nope. The higher low setup is pretty strict. The chart is literally building higher lows. DTSS stands for double top short sale. Am I watching for anything specific with the Fed meeting? Are you watching IBIT? Oh, got it. I don't know why I'd be watching IBIT during the Fed meeting. Of all the charts, right? I mean, I see the small little shelf, but I'm not really too concerned with IBIT, to be honest with you. No, not always, but the 50 SMA is definitely a moving average that I think of quite a bit. Thoughts on Palantir? Okay, so yesterday I made a, kind of a tweet about Palantir, somewhat jokingly, in after hours. So, it's a $5 million Navy contract, and they go up $10 billion in market cap. I kind of think that that's a bit of a joke. I like the chart. I think it's fine. I think it could push a little bit more and then start to build out the right-hand side. Not something that I'd necessarily buy at the moment, but, it's just like a little obnoxious, right? You get a $5 million deal, you go up $10 billion in market cap, like, kind of bullshit is that, really? You know what I mean? Like, that news isn't actually good enough to make that kind of a move, right? But doesn't really matter. The market thinks what the market thinks. Yeah, high volume close in AEO. This one's definitely interesting. You're feeling some FOMO, but cautious. Yeah, I just talked about my portfolio a little bit. There's a lot of great charts still out there. So, let me see. Still a lot of great charts out there. I only have two shorts on at the moment, QUBT and Netflix. And then I have AMD and NVIDIA on the semi side. I've got XOM on the energy side. I've got Tesla. I've got Rubrik on the cybersecurity side. I have NEM Gold. So yeah, that's about it. So AMD, NEM, Netflix, NVIDIA, QBT, Rubrik, Tesla, XOM. And I'm about half invested at the moment, 50% cash going into FOMC. Is OUST looking pretty remarkable? I mean, there's really nothing remarkable looking about this chart currently. Why is OUST looking remarkable over, let's say, ASTS? Or I don't know, how about Rocket Lab? Or I don't know, how about Joby? What makes OUST remarkable looking? I think that's the wrong use of words. I personally don't think it's that remarkable looking. For extended stocks, why don't you use ATR from entry price? I do. I do use ATR. PAAS is not a high volume close. First of all, you had higher volume on this day, and yesterday was just a breakout, right? But it was on no catalyst. So yeah, I wouldn't consider this an HVC, right? It's not the highest volume of the quarter at all. It's not the highest volume in the up move. What do I look for an entry after 50 SMA on a good stock reclaim? Because it could be an uppercut in the opposite direction and reject and go lower. Yeah, I that's why I want to make sure that I'm at least trying to buy stocks that are in a strong group. I think semiconductors are a strong group. And again, you don't know until it's hindsight when it rejects the 50 simple moving average, then breaks low of day and stops you out. So I mean, I personally look for, good follow through, like a day 2, day 3 kind of move, similar to what we saw in Tesla when it reclaims the 50. IREN looks like a good setup. Does it? What looks good about IREN? In fact, I regret covering the last of my shares yesterday. I wish I were still short. I don't think this looks like a good setup. I think this looks like the weakest of the bunch, right? Wolf looks better. Why would your eyes be on it? If Wolf looks better and Cypher looks better, why would your eyes be on Iron? That's and that kind of goes to the same thing. Like if LRCX looks better and KLAC looks better, why would your eyes be on AMD? Right? But even an AMD is much closer to its 50-day. I mean, this Iron still has to go up almost 20% just to get to the 50-day. Where something like Wolf, it's above the 50-day. In fact, this one only needs to go up less than 9%, and it's at a new high. It only needs to go up. Where's the close? It only needs to go up 3% to be at a new closing high. No, I just don't like ONDS here. There's just no setup. The entry was either on the hold of the 50 on the 3rd or nothing at all. At least, I just haven't seen a setup. Your setup was down here. Hold of the 50. I'm about 50% invested. VALE? Nah. There's just no setup there. Where's the consolidation? Also moves deadly slow. What's the minimum amount of volume or percent change for it to be something you trade? Volume itself, for me, is not important. What's important is dollar volume, right? If a $1 stock trades 50 million shares, that's $50 million, right? If a $200 stock trades a million shares, that's $200 million. So I don't care so much about the volume. I care more about the dollar volume. Is crypto sensitive to interest rates? I mean, interest rates have been going down and Bitcoin's off like 20+% from high. So pretty sure the answer is it's just doing its own thing. CCJ, yeah, not bad. Yeah, AEO could potentially be an HVC. I don't know that I'll play it, but how come no volume bars on the 1 hour? Better? Yeah, I just don't have them up. I don't necessarily need them at the moment. I need it to be the highest volume of the quarter at the very least. Right. And then again, if you like notice an earnings gap up and you're like, I'm gonna wait for an HVC setup, then you just let it trade all day long and either it gets massive volume or it doesn't. Yeah, SATS. I mean, this one had a nice little breakout at like $75 right down here. Hell of a move. When you say building the right side of the base, how many tight days and how many days consolidation do you look for your setup? Okay, so oftentimes it just depends on the prior move, right? Like if we just got out of a big long base breakout and I'm just looking for a high type flag, the consolidation could be anywhere from 7 to 15 days, right? 5 to 15 days. If it was coming out of a prolonged move, then I might be looking for a couple of months, right? If the stock broke down and then is V-shaped recovering like a lot of the recent stocks, I might need another 5 days, 6 days. So it has to technically give me a spot where I can get in, where then I can limit risk if I'm wrong. If the stock doesn't really offer that, or I'm buying something into supply, or the buyers have had to exhaust themselves just to V-shape recover the stock, we need to consolidate, allow the weak hands to take some profits, allow the stock to continue to be accumulated, and then we can go higher. So that's a great question, but it often depends on the move which it just made to get to where it's currently at, right? If the stock this is like the same thing. This is why GEV came into my focus, right? When a stock makes a move like this, right? It just makes this long, prolonged move. I remember people trying to buy this thing here, telling me that this in here was a high type flag. No, it's not a good one. Why? Because you're still extended from the 50 and you just made this absolutely monster move, right? You literally just got done making this absolutely monster move. So when you get a giant move like that, you need a multi-week, multi-month base. And that's exactly what we've gotten, right? And then all of a sudden you can break out. And now all of a sudden you're at a new all-time high, 690. See how that works? After you made a long move like this, right? This little itty bitty consolidation here doesn't cut it, right? Does not cut it. And it wasn't until here when I thought, okay, maybe now this consolidation's long enough. I'm going to start to buy these UNRs of $600 and start to buy it for a push to highs. I was a little early. Idea was right, just a little early. And this thing still needed to consolidate another 2 months. Really like a month and a half. So it often depends where it's coming from. So if you told me, right, this thing just pushed out here, and then now all of a sudden, it's just going to digest for 5 days, that's all it might need after this little push. And then you can continue higher. But when you make a really monster move like the one it made up here, right, then all of a sudden your consolidation needs to be a whole heck of a lot longer. Now, FIGR's recent IPO, I'm going to leave that alone. I mean, URA will probably be better when it can clear the 50 simple moving average. Man, ASML is a little bit frustrating too. I tried to buy ASML coming out through this consolidation or, coming out of that consolidation. Just would not cooperate, man. Unfortunately. I was right about the company, just wrong on my timing. ASML tightening. Yeah, I'm not quite interested yet here. I'm not really interested in it just yet. Hood, I gotta say, if there's one thing I really don't like about Hood is that this bounce has been on pretty low volume. Pretty low volume. Needs to finish building out the right-hand side of the base. I'm not showing up to buy this thing after it's moved 35%. So, yeah, Jumia. Unfortunately, this one doesn't trade enough volume for me, but yeah, this thing looks like it's trying to go. Have I had any big winners that aren't in the tech sector? Yes. Yeah, tons of them. I've had them in the energy sector. I've had them in the gold sector. I've had them in on the short side. I've had them in all sorts of everywhere across the market. Well, I'm just saying, when I talked about Joby, somebody was mentioning Cipher looking good, right? It's like there are much better looking charts out there than Iron. Excuse me. Um, yeah, TEM. We'll see what happens when this thing can get above the 50 simple. I'm not thinking too much of this one right at the moment. Yeah, there is really no setup at the moment for Wolf either. At least not one that I see. Could it just be a breakout of 16 and a half? I don't know. What do I think about the silver breakout? It's a little too late, right? Silver and commodities, in my opinion, are always supposed to be bought against key moving averages a whole heck of a lot easier. So the entry could have been on the 24th of November. And, if you really wanted to buy it on the breakout, would have been on Friday the 28th. There's no more setup here. Like, I don't think yesterday was the right spot to buy. So, and I thought if you were going to buy some silver related, again, we talked about PAAS on the 50 SMA reclaim on the 24th, the low cheat setup on the 26th. Then obviously you had your little high type flag going into yesterday. So, but I do own NEM. Oh yeah, I didn't consider NEM yesterday. I bought NEM yesterday as a break over prior day high. Baba pushing pre-market. Stock's got a lot of work to do, man. Would I sell Jumi or a GEV today if I had some? Well, yeah, I would sell a little piece personally. Yeah, if I were in, from I don't know, this pullback into the 20 or don't know exactly where I would have gotten situated in this thing. Probably the pullback to the 20. If I were long this name, I would be selling some into the strength. Yeah. NBIS needs to get moving. It's just stuck in this consolidation here. It's not really doing anything. I don't know that it's going to end up playing like an EP. EP is normally a piece of good news that changes the company's trajectory. The reality is that GEV was just in an uptrend. It was just a long consolidation after, a prolonged uptrend. So the stock is just in a continued uptrend, it looks like. It's kind of what it looks like to me. Yeah. On the flip side, it's also making, some subtle lower lows or lower highs, I should say. At some point, we'll see what happens if this thing goes and visits the 50-day. What groups do I like other than semiconductors? You still have energy. You have healthcare related. You've got names within the IWM. Financial stocks still act pretty good outside of JP Morgan yesterday. There's still a lot of groups out there, a lot of groups that act well. So gold and silver still act well. Copper still act well. Could I look at Dave? Not that special at the moment. Just a big old sideways base after a move up. And such a sloppy, I mean, this is a sloppy consolidation. Very sloppy in here. Do you know what was the return on equity of your best winner this year? My best dollar winner this year was just over 500K. I think 550 or something. Might have been Hims. And I think I want to, I don't know. It wasn't triple digits. I haven't had 100% winner, but I'm also trading like much slower names, right? I don't really trade like high flying small caps, right? Those are just such unreliable stocks. Like I don't enjoy getting caught in offerings, right? So like my trading is like the least stressful ever, right? And you don't, people like intentionally choose to stress out their trading, only to drive themselves insane all year long to hardly, like I do awesome and I don't stress myself out at all. I haven't even had a 100K loss this year. It's like the only year in the last 5 years that I haven't had a 6-figure loss. So that'll tell you, like, as I'm making more money now than I ever have on a yearly basis. So yeah, my trading, that's just kind of how it's gone, right? You make more by trading less volatile shit, right? And you don't get caught in stupid. I almost had a triple digit loss or 6-figure loss, excuse me. Triple digit. I almost had a 6-figure loss in iron, but fortunately it faded. I got caught in a short, and then it gapped up on me, unfortunately, and it just ended up fading. So I was had the right idea, just a little early. Yeah, I think A-Lab does look pretty interesting going into today. One that I'm keeping an eye on, if it can hold above the 50 simple moving average. What are the indicators I use on my charts? I use lagging moving averages, and these are just unfilled, untested gap zones. No, I am really avoiding the quantums. I personally think that they're shit stocks, and I don't really think that they're ready to go higher. Joby looks okay. I have AMD too. We'll see. As long as it stays above 218, I should be okay. No, donut. I don't really trade those kind of names. CLS. CLS technically could be ready to go. This consolidation's been about 5 or 6 weeks, maybe a little bit longer. Could be good, but it's not extended from the 50 anymore. Viking. The problem with VIK is RCL and CCL act really terrible. Do I have any specific guidelines for progressive exposure, like maximum percent invested per day? No, because if it's a follow through day, I'll get like 30% invested that same day. Yeah, good, but not great. Yeah, not bad. This one was even cleaner down here too, though. Not bad. Reclaim of the 50. Is there a news catalyst on this day? No, I don't know that I'm chasing a gap up like this, right? I mean, you're not actually considering buying this thing up 10% on the day, do you? Yeah, crowd was interesting at first. I did think that 520 spot was pretty decent, and it ended up just turning into a squat. Not much anybody can do about that. VRT, I like. I like this name still quite a bit. The question is this building higher lows? It doesn't look all that bad. Wolf could be a flat base breakout. Yeah. You're itching to short Costco? Yeah, earnings are too close. NU, not bad. Just a retest of the base breakout. Could be interesting. What EP you talking about? You mean EPS? No. EP is a term that was coined by Pradeep called episodic pivot, where a piece of news comes out for the company that kind of changes the company's trajectory. As an options trader, you're trying to get into swings, but I'm having difficulty finding liquid options names. Any recommendation or advice? Yeah, stop trading options. I mean, I don't know. I don't trade them, dude. So, it's hard for me to give you any real kind of advice other than, swing trade stocks. Real, super tight here on the right-hand side. I mean, I don't know how this thing could get any tighter. Do I have an approximate count of your wins? How many as a count are an area of 5 to 10? I don't know, dude. I'd have to look through all my trades, which is, 200 and some odd trades this year. I have no idea. The reality is I have about a 40% win rate. I could look maybe, dude. I don't know. We'll see if my stats kind of tell me that, but I don't think they do. Where would I manage risk if the stock squat? Where would I manage risk for NEM yesterday if the stock squatted? Are you talking about if it squatted yesterday, but it didn't? So, but if it did and it closed like just below my entry, I would have probably gotten rid of it. 'Cause not enough cushion. But gold and silver stocks were pretty strong yesterday. How will I manage my risk today? Probably down at my entry. So it's not a loss. Would I look to get into rocket over prior day high? You know what? This thing actually does not look bad. This could just be a higher low setup potential. This is not an ugly looking chart. Like a very, very controlled pullback, which I like. Like, look at the fall off in volume. Look at the gentle little pullback. It's not really trading erratic here. Nice little move up. Nice little pullback. Not bad. Well, I was day trading in 2020 and the market was absolutely flying, but it's not the same environment. And anybody who thinks it is just clearly didn't trade well at that time because I knew absolutely nothing in 2020 and into early 21, and I was making a effing fortune. So, yeah, I'm watching Google flag out. Yeah, I think Google looks fine. I'm just hopeful that the 50 simple moving average will catch up some more. Right? I need this 50 to catch up a little bit more. Why don't I use a fixed risk with a cap instead of fixed positions? I don't understand the question. I don't always want to risk 1% of my account per trade, let's just say. Right? Not every time. Right? Like, what if I'm not trading well? Am I just supposed to keep continuing to risk 1%? Or am I supposed to cut myself in half so I don't dig myself a huge hole? Right? Like, what are you supposed to do? You're just gonna keep 1% risk even while you're trading like absolute shit? Or even when the market's super choppy and like it. And the only reason you might be trading like shit is because the market's super choppy, but yet you're still in there just hammering away and hammering away and hammering away with 1% fixed risk Again, 1% might be a little over exaggerated, but a half percent? Or are you supposed to like cut your size in half until you're feeling like a genius, AKA the market's a whole lot easier? Because everybody's a genius when the market's easier, right? I don't think I'm necessarily a genius. I just know how to use progressive exposure. Like, that's the one thing that I think people struggle with a ton, right? They're so anxious to make money every single freaking day for some reason, but then don't sit in their winners when they have them, don't position size properly, or they trade like a jackass when the market's just being super choppy. And I've been there too. So it's like, it's like a good reminder for myself to make sure you're using progressive exposure when the market's choppy and you're not feeling like a genius, size shit down. And then when the market's giving you more setups, more follow through, and you're playing things properly, like you're actually seeing things well, and you're like, okay, it's a choppy market, but undercut and rallies are working, and that's what I'm buying. And you buy it and it works, and you buy another and it works, and you buy another and it works. Yes, now you've earned the right to size some things up. You're working behind profit. But if you are like, okay, this market's in an uptrend, but I'm just stubborn breakout buyer, and you buy a breakout and you get stuffed, and you buy a breakout and you get stuffed, and you buy another one and you get stuffed, you haven't earned the right to have fixed risk. You need to lower it down, right? So yeah, that's why I don't do fixed risk, because you could just bury yourself into a hole because you're stubborn about, I need fixed risk. No, you need to be flexible, and you need to feel like an absolute genius. There are times when I've got longs working, I've got shorts working. I am feeling like a genius. Why? Because I'm doing what the market is telling me, which is be short specific things, be long specific things. What entry tactics am I using to get into those longs? What entry tactics am I using to get into those shorts? Am I seeing the market well, etc.? And then when I'm wrong, I'm managing my risk really well with proper size, with tight stops. I mean, hopefully that kind of resonates with you, because I hear stuff like that all the time. Like, Ariel, why don't you just risk 1% per trade? Because that's insane, right? Because if you're a swing trader, there will be moments that you lose, like I did in October, right? 10 trades in a row, 12 trades in a row. Am I really going to draw my portfolio down 15, 12, 15%? Like, what? Now how much do I have to make to get that money back? I gotta work for the next 2 months just to get back to break even. Or when I lost 12 trades in a row, I was down 1.5%, which I got back in one trade, one good trade. And then in the next two good trades, because I was doing the right thing, I was shorting at that moment, Rigetti, UAMY, and Nugget. I ended up making 30 times what was my loss on those, losses in a row. So I would go through that October recap that I did either on YouTube or on X, and look at how, you could take a shitload of losses. And this is also why I don't use fixed risk percent per trade, because had I done that, I would have just buried myself into a hole and not been able to, I'd have been able to get out of it. But, it's about, when you're trading like shit, you're trading your smallest. When you're trading really well, you're trading your biggest. And you're not just trading well because you're, again, a genius. You're trading well because you're aligned with what the market's telling you to do, and the market's giving you more setups to do that thing that you're already seeing and doing well. Do I calculate position size every time you win some money on top so you compound it? Yeah, I slowly increase my position size. Yes. So like, if I've made an extra, call it $1 million over the last 2 months or something, right? Like now my position sizes are just a little bit larger, right? They're just a little bit larger. They'll be 100K more, and again, it's a lot of my positions I'm trying to add to it twice or three times before ever adding more, or before ever getting to like a 10% position size. So I've been starting off positions a little bit smaller because the market's been tricky for me. I've still been making money, but it's a little bit tricky for me. Although I'm making money, I'm not fine-tuned with my entries at the moment. I keep getting stuffed. I keep getting, reversals. I'm just not perfectly fine-tuned with the market. Although I'm trading well and I'm making plenty of money, right? I could be doing a whole heck of a lot better. And when I'm not performing to my absolute best, I just size things down a little bit, right? That's it. Yeah, I saw the DeepSeek news too. I don't think it matters. Yeah, I saw the Pop and Baba. I saw, the DeepSeek news. Like I said. Does it really matter? Yeah, I mean, the reason that AMD is still attractive is because of how large of a move it made. It's earned the right to consolidate, and it looks like it could be trying to get back over the 50. Again, I bought it over prior day high. I bought it when it was reclaiming the 20 simple moving average effectively. And then, of course, it just ended up squatting. So, I was thinking it was going to have a little bit more power yesterday going into FOMC, but Futu, yeah, maybe back above the 50. Well, Um, I'm at the desk all day, so I do use hard stops. Yeah, but by the way, that's a lazy excuse. It's easy to be patient when you have millions in an account. That is totally lazy. The way you get to more millions in your account is by being patient. Patient when you're in a winter, patient for the proper setups. The impatient are the people who don't make money, right? So it's like I hear people say that all the time, like, "Oh, it's so easy for you to be patient, just wait for a great setup." I still trade a shitload, right? I still do. But yeah, that whole it's easy to be patient. Yeah, it's that's a lazy, right? That's not the way to think about it, honestly. So don't think about it like that. You should be patient no matter what. Patient to get yourself into a name, patient to stay in the name once you're in it, and think about it more like that, right? Wait for your pitch down the middle of the plate. I mean, you can't swing the bat every time the pitcher throws the ball, right? Because you're impatient. You got to wait for something right down the center of the plate, right? If something's thrown behind your back, you're just going to be like, well, I'm impatient. I got to swing the fucking bat anyway. Like that doesn't make any sense, right? You got to be patient for at least a pitch right down the center of the plate. Yeah, well, I used hard stops. Like, okay, I don't input my order to exit, but if I'm at the desk, I know exactly where I'm leaving when I get in. Guys, I just realized the time. Much love. Got to get myself to stream. I will see you guys tomorrow, and no stream for me on Friday. I will be traveling as every weekend this month. So I will see you guys tomorrow morning. Hopefully, you guys traded awesome today. Be patient. FOMC on deck, and I will see you guys tomorrow morning. Later.